All right, hi guys, welcome back. Hopefully, we just restarted the stream. um, after YouTube was down. That wasn't our fault, we promise. All right, so we're just going to start fresh talking about our album this week, which is Armistice Live by Mutemath. The concert itself that this is based on was recorded November 6, 2009, but the album was dropped October 12th, 2010. The whole thing is available on DVD too, which is really cool if you can find it. A little bit of probably backstory, that's what I was getting into a little bit ago, of why no one has probably heard of Mutemath. It's a really interesting story. The band started as well, the band really is just one of the guys. It's Paul, the singer, and Paul had a Christian band, which was called Earthsuit, and at some point Darren moved from, I believe, Minneapolis to go play with Paul down in New Orleans. So at some point, I guess towards the end of Earthsuit, Darren, the drummer, got in there, and then they transitioned to get the new guitar player, Greg, who's the guitar player in this concert, or on this album, and they transitioned the name over to Mutemath. So why have you not heard of that? The weirdness comes in with how the albums were, I guess, marketed and who they toured with and that kind of thing. So originally Mutemath was on a Christian rock label, which made sense because Earthsuit was a Christian rock band. And then I guess at some point before releasing their first EP, they left that record label and co-founded their own record label that had only them on it, they were a subsidiary of Warner Brothers. This was the era of independent labels everywhere. But so they started their own record label, and on the first album, or first EP, branded it as Christian rock. And then on the first album, which was self-titled, it kind of got branded, and they toured with people like adult contemporary kind of music, which is also not what I think this is. And then finally, by the time we got to Armistice in 2009, they got to it kind of alt rock, which I think the closest as to how to describe Mutemath and what they are. The reason I chose Armistice Live, even though we tend to do really bad with live albums here, is because this almost functions as like a greatest hits. This has a lot of the good tracks from the self-titled album and from Armistice on it. There's not a lot of filler going on the album at all. There is a lot of killer musicianship going on, as I'm sure we'll talk about. We'll go ahead and start with our top threes. I can go first. Mine are Pins and Needles, You Are Mine, and Break the Same.
Mine are Armistice, Reset, and Backfire.
Mine are Backfire, Typical, and Spotlight.
I have Control, Clipping, and Spotlight.
All right. I have a feeling you guys won't like this, but get into bottom songs. My bottom song was Backfire.
My bottom song was Break the Same.
My bottom song was Odds.
My bottom song was Reset.
Cool, so we don't agree at all.
Yeah, we're kind of all over the place. But that could be good.
Heck yeah, War Grounds. Every song.
We're going to be fighting.
Every song is a battle.
Yeah, so I guess I did mention this was one of my favorite albums ever, so we'll go on with that, I guess, prejudice moving forward. Favoritism.
I also have a side note, just before we get into this written down in my notes. I was in no way close to the correct headspace to listen to an album like this. My past week has been kind of filled with chaos, and I have been listening to a lot of metalcore, hardcore music, and this is pretty different from that. So that was kind of what I was in the mood for.
I'm not stepping on the cord. The cord's always behind my legs.
Ironically enough, other than this album, I think I've listened to like 30 minutes of music this week.
I feel bad for you.
I've been listening to like podcasts or murder documentaries. I'm in my white girl era.
I've listened to the normal amount of music this week.
So 24 hours.
Exactly.
Every day.
That was to say daily.
See, I don't remember which stream I mentioned it on, but if you do want to listen to this album, I would recommend watching it. The whole thing. Mutemath put all the live videos up, although they are in 480p. which is kind of interesting. That led to an interesting watch earlier. Again, they were put up in like 2012, so I mean, say what you want to say. They've been up there 13, 14 years, whatever it is, but it's a lot better received as a live concert, I think, and I think that's part of where my bias comes from. Cool. We can get right into the first song, which is The Nerve.
I gave it a 7 out of 10.
I give this one a 9.
Carl, I know this is your favorite album, but I gave this one a 2. No, I'm kidding. It's 7.5.
I gave it a 6.
I like the rhythm going on in the background. I like a lot of the rhythm in the backtracks of this album. But this does introduce something that I complain about for the entire album. I'm not a huge fan of the vocalist here. There's
Really?
something in the voice that I don't like. I think it's too close to another artist's voice that I really like. Connor, First in Flight's main vocalist.
Yeah.
Can you get that from him?
A little bit.
Yeah,
I guess.
I think the tail end of some inflections. That's where I get it.
Maybe.
More than anything.
I did not make that connection.
I don't know
today.
why. It stuck in my brain and I couldn't shake it. But the whole time there was just something kind of off about the vocals for me. Maybe they had too many effects going on. I know at some points they put a lot of effects on the vocals. But in this song, I thought this was a pretty good song. I thought we were off to a really decent start. Chorus was a little bit repetitive, but hey, what chorus isn't?
Look, I was not the right guy for this one, man.
Hey, you guys got my side note. I'm good.
It wasn't even a headspace thing. I think this is just an area of music that I kind of shun away into a corner. And it's not even like it bothers me. There's just a lot of choruses, and this is music you have to be there for, in my brain. Just all of this to me was like, if I could feel the crowd, if I could feel the actual movement of the instruments and everything through the floor, it would be great. But through my headphones, it was just very quiet and very compressed. And it kind of killed it for me.
I didn't really have either of those problems. The only problem I did have with this one, and I'm only going to bring it up because it doesn't really happen anywhere else, but this one had, with the vocals, it sounded like they were mixed not as good as they could have been, because they do it better in every other song. This is the only spot where I have issues with it, of it just not being loud enough to really hear everything. But yeah, the chorus goes hard. This song is good, and start over. This is the first time of a lot of times this album does this, where the runtime of the song feels way shorter than it is. Like, when I checked and saw this was 4 minutes, I was like, that felt like 2.
Yeah, it's really high energy. I think that's why, and that's probably why the main reason why I love this album so much is they're all just so phenomenal at their instruments, and there's so much energy going on. So I just looked it up because I was curious. The studio album version of this track is only a minute shorter than the live, and they do intro and outro. So I'm assuming they do the same number of choruses on the studio version. So I don't know. There may be one extra, but I don't know. I've never noticed that. The intro on this one is a little long, and I think that's most of that extra minute. But it does help to kind of build the tension. And in the video, the band just comes right on stage and starts. So it's not like they're... No, that's wrong. They don't come. It's them walking up and kind of getting onto stage. So, missing that on the... Yeah, that's fine. I said that on purpose. I'm going to get it out of the way because this is something I always complain about, and it's dead drum tones. But the thing about it is on this, with this band, it still bugs me, but it bugs me a lot less because Darren is such a phenomenal drummer, and I don't think that a lot of the things that do shine could if the drums were where they would normally be, because the drums are in kind of the spot almost between where all of the crazy noise is and then the really solid bass lines on the bottom, which they do a good job of keeping that out when he's singing, so you don't get kind of lost by the wash. But I think if the drums were where I'd prefer them in this band, in this context, the guitar parts would have to be lower or something to make up for it. It would have to be kind of an interesting trade-off. So I think in this particular band, the drums aren't my favorite, but it helps everything else shine. That was it. That's kind of overall. All right.
I got some drum notes later, but just not for this one. Actually, I have a lot of instrument notes throughout this, just not really on this first one.
This one is, I think on this one they all play what is their main instruments. So Greg, the guitar player, does at some point, well, okay, they all play synth, except for Darren, the drummer. Darren plays drums only. Sometimes he sings. The other two all sing, or the other two sing. One plays guitar and synth and sometimes vibraphone, and then at one point drums. The other one plays bass. He plays upright bass, both bowed and fingerstyle. He plays drums quite a bit, also plays synth. And then Paul plays a Rhodes, synths, a guitar, and then manages all his own vocal effects while going on. So they're like running around stage, bouncing between instruments. There's only 4 of them, which is crazy when you think about how big the soundscapes are. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're running tracks or not. They might be. I don't think so. I don't think they're running tracks. But
they're running tracks.
What makes you think they're running tracks? Did you watch the video?
I didn't watch the video. But knowing that there's 4 people in the band, there is more than 4 things happening in half of these songs.
Yeah, so they leave stuff looping. So a lot of times they'll leave, or one of them be playing like synth with one hand and drums with the other, or they'll all be singing and playing, and the guitar parts have like double trackers and crazy effects going on. I don't know. There may be. All I know is that they don't play with a click. So if
there's no click for sure, I can tell you that. I get mad. Yep. But there's at least like a drum pad sitting there with 16-second clips that he's going boop or something because there's cued in stuff.
So he's not hitting anything on a drum pad. There is a track later that they play with a drum machine. Okay. But it's not on the whole time, and they trigger it. So I mean, there may be some like pads that they're queuing off one of the synths, but I don't really think there's much else going on because their energy on stage is just insane. Mm-hmm. Even at the beginning, now it just continues to go into complete chaos.
Yeah, I'm not anti-track, but I think there's tracks going on this. I think for how much it sounds like what is a studio album, which is like half of my problem with this, there's definitely some sort of tracks going on, and that's not a takeaway for me. I like Steel Panther. I love their live show. I don't think their lead singer actually sings a single song the whole night. It's pretty well known.
At this point, they had been playing together pretty much straight for a number of years, and then I think this was later in the tour dates for the album release. So they were playing songs they'd been playing. I mean, some of the stuff they released in 2004, and they'd been playing together since 2004. At this point, it's 5 years later. So they're just all firing on all cylinders. You know, there's a lot of points that you're like, wow, I can't believe they hit all that. A lot of the music is kind of complex for that amount of ability. All right, well, our notes will get shorter as we go. We're just talking about the band. Track 2 is Backfire.
I give this one a 7.5.
I give this one an 8.
8.5.
I give it a 7.
Hold on, Carl. Was this not your bottom song?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel bad.
I don't.
You're right. I don't.
Oh my god. Complete opposite cameras the whole time.
All right. Well, I'll get into this one. I really thought the bass line was cool. I was feeling it the whole time. I was actually getting into this one more. They kind of take you on this weird little trip on the intro. Like it's really neat how they kind of build that soundscape, right? Is that what that was? Like sorta pseudo.
Yeah, it's got this like they have a lot of almost symphonic elements going on with their orchestration and what they do. It's kind of interesting.
But Carl, here's my thing. I wish it had a bit more energy. And I think that specifically comes from how I feel about the vocals. Because I feel like a lot of times in this album, when the backtrack is really bringing it, they have the groove going on, they have everything layering on top of each other in a really nice way, that the vocals kind of fall flat and underneath of it, or they kind of pull it down, and I just want the vocals to push it forward. Like, that's what I would prefer from them.
I get it. They kind of have this interesting thing that, like, they come from, like, the psychedelic rock and jam band kind of influence. There's a lot of 60s and 70s funk, and then there's a lot of psych rock going on, too. So if you go back to those bands, which there's another album that did absolutely terrible on Album Book Club, typically whenever someone is singing, the band is laid back a lot. So they do that on purpose. They actually pull the energy back so that the vocals can go through. So I get what you're saying.
I thought the vocals themselves were less energetic than the band. I thought the band still had the energy, and all the instruments still had the energy, but the vocals weren't keeping up with that.
At this point in the concert, I would probably agree.
I got the opposite. I thought they held up here, and there are points later where they don't, but I thought this one was good.
I just kind of felt it the whole time, but also I have my own problems with the vocalist himself. But that's just like my ears thing.
Maybe you just don't like people from New Orleans. That
Probably
could be
not.
it.
Yeah. This is the song that really set in that this is probably a really good live show, and that they should have left it at that. For whatever, and maybe it was the version I listened to of it on Apple Music, because I did the click through to 15 and then click through to the 13 track, like the original release they had on there. And by gosh, was it just the worst like mix you'd ever heard in the world. This was also part of my anti-AirPod brigade.
Oh, this album has so many spatial effects and everything going on that if you don't have some way that can handle it, or if you're trying to listen to it kind of quiet or passively, you are screwed.
Oh, I was like sitting there analyzing it with it at max volume, but still in AirPods, and it was like, it was not good. And I don't mean it was bad, I just mean it was not a good experience through AirPods. This was like in itself a good song. The riff was very catchy. The vocals were catchy. But just for a live performance, it felt like it was missing that live feel. And for it to be a recording, it felt like it had too much live feel. And I really wish they would have given me a little more like hiss, a little more background crowd noise, something a little less studio. I don't know. I think that's my complaint. I think the studio did a little too much on this one.
So it's interesting. How big do you think the venue is they're playing in?
This venue, I don't know, 600 people tops.
Yeah, so it's a theater. They're playing in a theater.
Yeah,
so it's not like
small.
It's not like arena rock where you're going to get all that reverb and stuff in it. There's still a lot of space stuff going on, and it is packed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the place is absolutely packed. I know that I never got to see Mutemath just because I could never find a show. They were based out of New Orleans, but really they were based out of Nashville. So since I was in Central Kentucky, everyone there kind of knew Mutemath one way or another if you were into music. So everything they would play was sold out. So I never got a chance to actually see them during this era. I probably could have later.
Yeah, I liked a lot of the effects that were going on here. The synth intro was sick. The kick is very heavy, at least for this beginning part. And I'm not 100% sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It very much distracted me for the rest of the song while it was playing. It did not play the whole time. It would have actually been points off if it did. But very deep synth goes on later. The bass. This is the first one where I noticed the bass player is killing it, and he's going to do that for like the rest of the album.
Yeah, Roy is a monster.
Mm-hmm. But it's not like he's taking over or you can't hear the bass, which is most live shows I've seen is one of those two things. It's loud enough to hear, loud enough to notice, but also gets out of the way for the other instruments. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, he's also a P-bass guy, which helps. It's the right amount of thud and right amount of everything. And funny enough, even when he plays the upright later, the upright has a P-bass pickup in it. Yeah, the only thing that you guys wouldn't have caught is that on this one, Paul's playing a keytar, which I just absolutely love. They play mostly vintage instruments, but in this band, there's so much energy, and they're all running around stage. And even on their slower songs, they are very high energy. In fact, Darren, the drummer, one of his trademarks is he duct tapes the headphones on his head. He doesn't play in-ears. He throws studio headphones on, and then they roll 4 or 5 rolls of duct tape around his head to keep the headphones on. So they are super energetic the whole time. And I just think the guitar is cool because it lets him get a chance to get out from behind the keyboard and kind of be the front man he needs to be to keep the energy up. The other thing I wrote is you get more of the harmony vocals on this track, which is super cool because not only can Greg play guitar and synth and later vibraphone and all this stuff, and Roy's the same way. He's playing 2 different basses and percussion and synth and all this stuff. They both sing vocal harmonies that are awesome at different points on this album, and they were really tight on this track. Yeah, an 8 is my lowest score on this album.
Yep. Noticed that.
I think it's because it is a live show. I think that's why. I think their energy is most of it. And it's not that their studio albums are bad. I just think the first 2 albums being combined into one is a handy thing here.
Yeah, there weren't too many times that I thought that the live aspect of it was a negative, but there's a couple times that I was like, I need to go listen to the studio one just for a couple of things that might be different there, but none of it was ever a negative.
Well, we'll get to it. The last 3 songs, they pretty much just unleash.
Hold on, I lied. There's one time where it's a negative later, but we'll get there.
Yeah, they kind of just unleash the end of the world at the end of the concert. But all right, track 3 is Clipping.
I gave it a 6.
I give this one a 10.
7.
8.
The electronic stuff going on in it, the wub-wubs, the weird, like, everything going on top of the weird vocals, on top of the weird guitar. None of it was doing it for me. The chorus wasn't there for me. The only thing that did it for me was how the guitar was played. But it had way too many effects on it for me to actually enjoy it. Also, I didn't dig the talking at the beginning, but that's because I have a general preference against live albums.
All right. Take everything he just said, make it a positive. I liked a lot of the effects that were going on here. It's like not quite ethereal like towards the end, but it is like in that realm. I thought that was really cool. And vocally and the drums were the standout for me on this one. I know Carson is not a huge fan of the vocals, but I thought they were really good on this one.
You got anything, Logan?
Yeah. I hate almost every mic they use to record this. The drums specifically, they're terrible.
I'm 97% sure it's all SM57s on everything on stage.
They're all awful. This is what I would use for my black metal project. It's something that sounds bad.
That's what I was going to tell you is it's actually probably closer to like black metal drums than you would think.
Oh, yeah. I like the way they're recorded if it was that context. But it's not that context.
So it's really interesting. They all only play vintage gear. So they only play like old stuff. They will only buy vintage stuff. They will only buy it from pawn shops. So his kit it's a bunch of different vintage drums, and the first thing he does is he takes the bottom head off, and then he just covers everything in duct tape. and it's this really kind of eclectic. It's a very like funk sound, but then he hits everything really, really hard, and you get these kind of you get a pitch bend that isn't really pleasant. Because you do one of two things: you take the bottom heads off and you tune them up, and then you get the '70s rock concert tom sound, or you take the bottom heads off, leave them low, and don't hit so hard, and that's how you get that kind of studio sound going. So I don't know if they have the mics up in the toms or what, but there's a couple points where they have some really interesting overtones. This song, the reason this is a 10, I just love the energy in the build. I love the Rhodes. I love the upright bass when it's bowed. A lot of the guitar stuff's played on slide with all the delay is really cool. And this is the song Darren uses 3 sticks on. So the whole song he's playing with 2 sticks in his right hand, playing the hi-hat part. And he's playing stuff that's like actually impossible otherwise. He's just such a phenomenal drummer, and he plays this stuff that's incredibly complex on a 4-piece kit with 2 cymbals. He only has hi-hats and a ride. That's it. And then does it in a way that he doesn't get in the way of the band most of the time.
How much did this dude pay Carl?
He is probably, Not
believe
probably.
the fee these days is one dome sesh.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
No, Darren is probably one of my bigger influences on drums. As far as like people that I found that didn't find me because they're just a phenomenal drummer. You know, you've got like your John Bonhams, your Neil Peart, and all those people. Out of people that I just like to listen to, Darren's up there. I mean, he's probably top 5 for like being a reason that I play the way I do. So huge influence on me. Which makes all this make infinitely more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You also have to see it. You really, and that's why I was like, ugh, when you guys asked me for an album, because I was like, we'll try this. We'll see how a live album does, because this is one that like the live part of it is the part.
I tried to find time to watch the video today, and around 2:00 things hit the fan, and it was not going to happen. It's not in the cards for today.
I think I've tried since about last Wednesday to find time.
Yep.
It's cool. I get it. I just honestly, Mutemath doesn't check their YouTube stuff, and I kind of feel bad for saying this, but I need to rip it and re-up it in at least DVD quality so that people can enjoy it. Because, dude, I was watching it earlier, and I was like, man, this looks awful. And I checked the little corner, and it only went to 480. I was like, you have to actually be joking. All right. Track 4 is Control.
I give it a 5.5.
Oh,
I give it a 9.5.
I said that like I didn't give it a 6.
Gave it an 8.5.
I can get this out of the way.
I'm right there with you, brother. This one sounds generic somehow. How? You have so much cool stuff going on, and it sounds bland. What happened? How come I couldn't latch on to any piece of this? I don't know what it was. Like, I think the rhythm section sounds really cool, but the vocalist being so... I think the vocalist was really upfront in this one, right? I don't like his voice. I don't like how he does it. It being so upfront, I just couldn't latch to any part of this. The chorus is just all right, and I feel like the crowd sounds much bigger than it should be, but also knowing that they have a really devout fan base, never mind. They should be screaming.
Every member of the band crowd surfs in this concert, I think.
Yeah, they'd be
except the bass
screaming
player.
like that. That makes sense. They'd be screaming like that. But also, this one is way too long to be this middle of the road. Why?
Did you write down how long? Because I did not write any of them.
Is
I
this
don't
one
think.
11 minutes? No,
No.
it's like 6 or 7. It's one of the
Control
two.
is 550.
Okay, that
It's
makes sense.
6
Wow, your
minutes.
time is shrinking, Carson.
Well, okay, so I get it because this song is kind of repetitive, at least the parts that he's singing. So there's the parts that are jams I don't feel like are that repetitive.
And the parts that he's singing, I don't particularly like, right? So that feeling stretched out. So this 6-minute song felt like 8 or 9 minutes. It was crazy.
Just wait till the 8 or 9 minute songs. Not
Oh, I'm gonna rip into him.
really. I did not like most of the long ones. I didn't have a problem with,
I had a lot of problems.
except there's one, and it's not the whole song. It's like one part of the song. I think we had that same problem last week.
Yeah. Look, tempo was a suggestion on this song. Just say that. There's a fake out ending.
Mhm.
That kind of made me a little angry. There was... Well, I had a note in here that I wrote down that I really wanted to cover. I forgot it there. Oh, yeah. Every time they went into the chorus, the vocalist messed up the tempo, like, egregiously bad. Every single time. It was different every time.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what ended up being the downfall of Mutemath is Paul thought he was the whole band for most of the time. Not that he's a bad piano player, not that he's a bad frontman, but he definitely thinks he is the show. And that's... Mutemath technically still exists to this day. It's just Paul. I don't know. This is the first time you see the double drumming, which is kind of one of their hallmarks live. So I think Roy plays drums too on this one. There's a killer halftime section. All the tones on all the instruments are just phenomenal. I don't remember what guitar he's playing on this song. I started taking notes. So he's got something like a K or a silver tone with 3 gold foils, semi-hollow. He's got a 335. He's got an SG, Les Paul Jr. double cut, and a Tele he all plays during this concert. And they all sound great. At any point in time, his guitars sound awesome. I don't know. The drums are still kind of flat, kind of dead, but again, it works for Mutemath for some reason.
Man's Casualty's got better gear than I will ever have for one concert.
Well, so what's wild about Mutemath is this is before people knew what most of that stuff was. I mean, you got to think like before the Black Keys, before Dan Arbach played like K's and stuff like that. Those guitars were $200 any day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So he has the most expensive guitar there is probably the 335, and it's probably just a Gibson Standard. I mean, the double cut wouldn't have been worth a lot. SGs are never worth a lot. It's probably I don't know, it might be an American Telly. I didn't look. The Telly's pretty nice. But the Silvertone or K, I don't know which one it is. It's got gold foils, so I didn't look. But whichever guitar that is would not have been worth a bunch of money. And that's kind of the thing with them playing all this vintage gear is like I'm watching this and like knowing what I know now, it's almost hard to watch this concert because as things move on, like they're not like mistreating any of the gear, but they're definitely playing it. I'll put it that way. I think that's all I got. Did I say there was a killer halftime section?
Yeah.
You did.
All of these songs, I probably account for at least 1,000 views on every single one of these videos. So I know all of the songs almost all the way through at this point. All right, next song is the title track, Armistice.
We're up. Give this one a 7.5.
I give this one a 9.
I gave it a 7.
Gave it a 7.
Listen, you get immediate bonus points for French. I agree. Highways suck. I really dig the groove that they get into in the song. I complain about the vocals again, but whatever. I actually like how they did like the electronic techno stuff in this one. I feel like it's weaved in very well. It fits the groove. I'm not into the weird bits at the end, but overall, pretty good.
What about the part where they unplugged the guitar and just started touching the end of the cable?
Listen, I didn't think the overall song was that bad. Don't make me drop it another point.
You didn't like the section where it turned into 2005 again?
Bro, this was only 2009.
No, we do get a 2000s later on, I'm pretty sure.
2005 and 2009 are so very wildly different in my brain.
In Spotlight, yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's the difference between you being 3 and 7. That's a very large gap in your age. I was in high school. No,
Old.
No, I was in middle school in 2005 and high school when
Old.
this came out. Yeah, I am. Sorry, I'm going last, so I don't take everybody's notes. That's what I'm kind of letting you guys go every time.
Oh, no, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm glad I made the joke because I don't have too much more.
Okay.
This one was fun. Had a great groove, but after the first couple, I felt like it, along with the one before it, didn't really do enough compared to those, I guess. And I get it's a live show. They're not going to keep it at 100 the entire time.
See, that's why I like this one more. They pulled it back. There wasn't as much going on. I could digest it easier.
Their albums are kind of like that too. They're very. They don't really have a similar sound on all of their tracks. That's just something they've always been like. I've always felt like a Mutemath album feels more like a good mix CD than most albums do. They do make it work. I think the only note you guys didn't cover, Roy was set on kill for this song. I mean, he just absolutely was
the bass player.
Yeah, murdering.
Oh
the
yeah,
bass.
he was loud and present.
That's what made it so groovy.
And I enjoyed the break and the build. This is the one that had the drum machine on it. Other than that, I appreciate the way they run the intros in the live show to make everything kind of blend together, which I think their albums do have very similar things too. It kind of brings back that thing. I think a lot of my favorite bands kind of have that cinematic thing to them, whereas they kind of have an interesting like transition. Yeah. All right. We can go on to.
Do you have anything?
Oh, you're good.
Oh, I thought you already spoke.
I got my bits and pieces out. Everything else was pretty much covered.
Okay. Well, sorry. I'll let you go. All right. Track 6 is You Are Mine.
5.
Wow. I gave this one a 10.
Gave it a 7.
Give it a 7. I'll get this out the way.
Oh.
Oh, that's actually pretty much how I feel about it, but I have a couple notes. This is where the album really starts to feel all over the place for me. You know, you were just talking about how they don't really sound similar in each track, and that's a thing that they do. I didn't know that. So to me, just listening for the first time, I was really bounced around, and like one moment we're in this really nice groove, and then the next moment they just rip it all away. I just don't have too much to say about tracks like this one because they've kind of taken what I've really liked about the album and changed it. It's just not for me, I don't think.
Yeah, I really like the piano in this one. That was the the really big stand up. But this one, the only thing that hasn't already been covered is that I feel like this song is very familiar, and I can't tell if it's from like a pre-listen this week, but I feel like it's not. I feel like I've heard this song before, but like the recorded version of it.
It's in a couple movies.
That's probably what it is.
These dudes also remind me a lot of Coldplay, and I don't know why.
There are definitely points that they get Coldplay. I get a lot of Radiohead now too, knowing what I know about Radiohead. Yeah, kind of like psych rock Nashville Radiohead, kind of, especially like in Rainbow's era, which is later than this. But
You know, it's funny that French sample that they used at the beginning of Armistice. I'm pretty sure. I think 21 Pilots used it somewhere else.
so yeah, 21 Pilots are huge fans of Mutemath. They collabed
Yeah.
right before Mutemath broke up.
Oh, I see.
So Mutemath did a remix of a bunch of 21 Pilots songs with them in studio. So if you're a
Pretty
21
cool.
Pilots fan, it's sick. Because those guys have very stripped down arrangements, which is the opposite of Mutemath. So it leads to some cool stuff. Yeah, this is one of those songs for me that's really special because it's mellow, but they managed to keep the energy up. You know, it kind of, it gives you a breath. It doesn't feel like it sucks the energy out of the room. And it's in the right spot because I feel like if they kept hammering you with different sounds here and didn't like give you a second to breathe, I think the rest of the album would be harder to listen to. I love the harmony vocals. I really love the section where it builds up and there's this kind of huge wash section. I don't know. This gets stuck in my head a lot. I've probably listened to this song more than 1,000 times. So it's not really fair to get my review of it at this point. All right. Track 7. We're going to odds.
I gave it 6.
Give this one an 8.5.
I gave this one a 5.
I give it 6.5.
Nice.
I just miss some of the energy we've been getting with these tracks.
Yup.
This is where I really started to feel like this album was out of my wheelhouse. Like I was really detached from it. And the chorus background, I think it's pretty. I think that's like the only part of the song that I'm really with. All the other pieces of it, I just wasn't a huge fan of, which sucks because they're all like great musicians. There's some really cool musicianship going on, but I just couldn't latch on to a lot of it.
All right. Tinfoil hats, everybody. This is going to be a lot. Not like a lot wrong with this song. Like you said, the chorus is good, and I think each part of this song individually is good to the point where like the last note I have on here is like this could be like a movie trailer song. That being said, the transition between each part of the song into every other part is not there. It's
God awful.
It's like the first time it happened, I was so mad because it's this like really cool stripped back verse, and they build up, and then it goes from like 30%. They're building up to like a 70%, and then they go back down to 50. And I'm like, you had it there. You could have just done it, and you went like, I have it written like the safe or the boring route. They could have made it a really cool, like, came back and swing into the chorus, but they just didn't.
Yeah, they
And
blue-balled you.
Yeah, I don't know why. And that was that's why this one is my bottom song. It's not a bad song, each part individually, just the way they strung them together did not do it.
They have an even worse Buffalo in Spotlight later. That's what I always call it. So like that happens in a lot of music. So you'll lose big build, and it seems like it's going somewhere, and then they'll just hit a downbeat.
Yep.
And then like they'll say like 2 or 3 words in the chorus, and then hit huge. And
But that was my problem. They never hit huge.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, this to me was the song you go get another beer to. And unfortunately, I was listening to this not at the show. And so it's that great pullback, remember, we're all here having a good time, check back to reality while you're at the show kind of thing, while also still being there and present. That's just all it is, man.
It's an interesting song, just because of how they all switch around. So the guitar player Greg is playing vibraphone on this one, which they have as a kind of a sample pad. You kind of notice that whenever Paul sits down and plays the Rhodes, they're always going to be a little mellower song. Well, actually, I take that back. But he's sitting down playing the Rhodes, and then it starts out with both Roy and Darren playing drums, which is super cool because it almost feels like a percussion ensemble piece in the beginning. And this is the first time that I really talk about it, but their percussion orchestration is incredible in this band, because this is the one that it comes in with just the kick pattern that Roy's playing on like a vertical bass drum, and it is not what you think at all. Because if you listen to the kick pattern, you don't know how they're going to come in on one until it happens, and they give you that kind of switcheroo. I agree that this one's a slowdown, and the song feels kind of long. But it's the right spot to put it on the album, so I didn't let it kind of take away from that, because we talk about it all the time, like where's the spot where you want to pull back, where's the spot where you want to build up, and I think they kind of break that a little bit later, but this was the right spot to kind of have this would be the slow dance song if there was any room to do that at the show. Ooh, all right. This is probably their biggest hit. That is track 8, which is typical.
6.
Oh.
Wow. 10.
8.5.
7.5.
What the hell was up with the mega wub into this one? What? Why? Why did you start out this song like that? It was like the end of the last song into this one. They just hit us with this killer mega wub, and I was not about it. I still don't like this vocalist. The chorus is just all right. The song sounds pretty typical. I really, at this point, I'm really starting to think I don't like Mutemath. This was the point where I was like, okay, I probably just don't like this band. And the next song solidified that.
Neat.
I thought the start of the song was light years better than the last song's energy. I said that they went from like a 30 to a 50. They went right back up to a 90 at the beginning of this song, and I was here for it. The bass, once again, is carrying the entire flow of the song, and it's great.
I thought the intro of this song was terrible. Timing was yet again a suggestion. I have heard this song before, though, so I do know it. I did write down, this is where my tinfoil hat went on, that I swear, they only mess up to prove they're not playing tracks. Like, there's some stuff that they'll just go like, blip, and just be like, I'm like, that was on purpose.
See, maybe it's because I've always seen it on the concert before I listened to it. Like I saw this as a concert rather than listening to it first. I have never caught any of that. Because I legitimately thought I was going to go back and watch this today, like in detail, and criticize it and be like really mad about some of the stuff, and that never happened. So I think it's really interesting that you guys are catching stuff. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the wub wub as much, but that's kind of a funny thing, because this is kind of, for me, the tipping point for Mutemath. The next album of theirs is pretty good, but it's got a lot more of that and a lot less of the rock. It's a lot more.
You are like Walter. Jeff Dunham puppet.
It's exactly what that face is. I'm glad somebody saw it.
I don't know. I Typical is a song. Yeah, no, go ahead. You can be as grumpy as you want. That's fine.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm done being grumpy about it.
So I played Typical in a band, I'm pretty sure, in high school. I mean, I've known this since it came out on the first album. So again, this is not really fair. I always thought the guitar hook was really killer, though, to a point that the first time I heard it, I was like, where have I heard that before?
Hey, Logan, I think Carl may need your glasses.
Looking through a rose-tinted lens.
I mean, that's fair. This album and just Mutemath in general it's very much I got in on the ground level. I was a fan of them when they were around,
Hey,
and
I definitely love some music that's absolutely like anybody else that would listen to it would just go, nah, no, absolutely not. Don't. Why are you listening to this? And I'd be like, I don't care. But this is actually good music.
yeah, it's one of those things. The live thing doesn't translate sometimes.
For me, I think it's majorly the genre, my mood this past week. I have a lot of different like factors going into this. Yeah, I wasn't listening to this at the right time. I'm not super into this band. I'm not super into a lot of their sound. So I think the musicianship and everything else going on is really impressive. I just wasn't really able to get like attached to the music.
I get it. It's also kind of it's really funny because I always thought this album sounded like it came out a few years after it did, but at this point it definitely sounds like 2011. Maybe not 2009, but it sounds like the horrible era of Coldplay. To really be honest, and I think that kind of ruined it for a lot of people that like weren't on the ground level maybe.
There's also a lot of choruses in a lot of their songs, and that bugs me because they're really good at just playing.
They kind of hold back a little because the lyrics are they're different. I won't say they're important because they're kind of generic, but they are very much. I don't know. This is funny. When we went to see the Vinyl's Behind Your Head. When we went to see them,
The Minnows.
When we went to see Minnows, their lyrics reminded me a lot of Mutemath. A lot of it is this very like positive, uplifting. Like the lyrics mean a lot. So like Typical is about like not being normal, and that the best thing you can hope for is to not be normal, is to break the typical. And a lot of it is this kind of.
He also said the thing.
Yeah, well. And it's really interesting because at this point, their album had been out 3 years, and everyone in the audience is singing along to the whole thing. So they couldn't cut a lot of it to have more jam time, and I think the majority of the fans would not have been receptive, although they were later when they did it. So I don't know. All right, that moves us to track 9. We probably should keep going here, which is Burden.
4.
Oh my God!
Well, Carson really, really did not like this album at this point. I give this one a 9.5.
7.5.
I gave it a 7.
Would you guys like me to get my rant out of the way?
You do whatever you want, man.
All right. So, way too long to sound this boring. At least for me. I think a 10-minute song is already overcompensating for something that you lost along the way. This one is just all right. I'm not super into the whole soundscape stuff. We all know that. I think the guitar here is really cool, but it's just not enough to help supplement the length and everything else going on and make me want to listen to this again. The chorus ends up being extremely repetitive by the end of the song. More wubs, boo. Vocal effects get really annoying, at least for me. And now this is when I realize, I think I was like 7 minutes into the song when I wrote this. I'm being mean. I should stop. Like, it was making me like very frustrated because I was trying to like a track from a band that I'm not going to be into. I don't like them. Unfortunate, but I don't. I think they're great musicians and they can do some really cool things. I don't like how they put the pieces together.
That's how it goes.
So this reminds me a lot of me during the Will Wood episode.
Yeah.
Just being
Just
like
payback.
Antithesis.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So this track, they do the jam thing, and if you're not liking Mutemath at this point, it's gonna make you mad. So I get it.
All right. I did tease this song a little bit earlier. I just didn't realize it was this one. Ironically, around the 7-minute mark is where I started to have some problems. First 7 minutes are great. Bass is killing it. The synth parts are awesome. Everything that Carson said he hates about like the soundscapes, I loved it. Every part of it on this album. The vibraphone is great. However, whatever they start doing, what I'm calling the reverb break around the 8-minute mark went on for way too long.
Wait.
Oh my God.
That's the whole reason I didn't write the notes there, because I was being really mean about it. I was like, I hate this. This sucks.
So around the 7.5-minute mark, I was like, this song's been going on for a while. They're like, the reverb break has been going on for way too long. How long do we have left? And I saw 4.5 minutes left on the track. Like, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Are they just going to do this for the rest of the time? And yeah, they are. They are going to do this for the rest of the time. And unfortunately, I did bring it down a point. This one was one of my favorites until that happened.
Yeah, intro went hard. Guitar riff was catchy. The bass was very funky. The drums were pretty solid. Vocals were a little drowned out, but that was fine in my eyes. The solo, it was there, man. There's the spacey section in like the middle. It was weird. There was a tambourine solo for like 4 measures.
Yeah. At some point, the band thinks they're done, and Paul just picks up a tambourine and starts shaking and gets the song back started. That's what happened.
Then we're in like Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
And then it's 4-minute outro.
Yeah, the orchestral ending thing is kind of cool. The soundscape ending, I get it, but not on a song that's 7 minutes too long already. Or not 7 minutes, 3 minutes too long. If they had put a
4.5.
I was going to say, yeah, 4.
If they had put a minute of that intro on some other stuff, I would get it. The middle section is definitely too long. I just like that they kind of explored and kind of went nuts. They definitely lost the plot in the middle of this one. Considering what it's like later when they actually go ham, they just lost track of what was going on. So I don't know if people lost in-ears or they lost sound or what's going on. I actually quite enjoyed the guitar solo. I think it fits the song really well. I don't know, Greg is not a shredder, but the telly with the kind of nasty gated fuzz sounds really good on this one. So
it feels like it just didn't fit this song.
It's
a good solo for a different song, I think.
This is also a really weird song because it's like,
I don't know that it needed a solo, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I think this song is about depression. I think this song is about being a burden to other people, if I remember correctly, and it's like having a depressive spiral. Like I think that's what it's supposed to be like. So it being this like high energy thing and then him singing a little bit and then there being a guitar solo sort of makes sense. But he doesn't really show off on guitar too much on this album, so I gave him points for doing it here.
The 4-minute outro was a burden on the score of the song. I know that.
Yeah. No, I agree. This is I think this track and then where were we?
Track 9.
No, but I think track 5 is the other one that I was like, it's too long. There's a couple times that it's definitely like they're milking it a little bit.
It's like a good half of this album.
Wild.
Half of this album, perfect length songs. Even maybe, dare I say, a little short. The other half of this album, egregiously long. They don't. Where's the middle ground? It's 4 minutes or like 9.
Or 11.
So hold on.
I did it this time. I said the thing. Carl also said the thing.
Don't
just
worry,
didn't
I also
point it out.
altered you.
Okay,
I don't know what that even means.
So Burden's 10.5 minutes. And then the last song is just them going nuts and
it's
reacting to the
8.5,
crowd.
right?
Yeah. The last song's it's basically 9 minutes, 8:59.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, none of these song times are really, other than Armistice is a little long, Control's a little long, but I mean, this is not a long. It's a 70-minute CD, which for a live CD is not much.
Maybe they just all felt long.
See, I mean, I think it's the opposite. I think most of them feel short. It's just, I don't know.
I agree with Carl here. I think for the most part, they felt shorter than they were, except for this one, which decided to take me out of it halfway through.
Burden is a problem, and it's kind of interesting going into the next song because I think they have this like need to pull it back to go into Pins and Needles, which is my favorite song on the album, which I'll defend here in a minute. But it's kind of an interesting thing. Oh, sorry, my mic stand is just not staying up today. I had to adjust it, and it's like toast.
Make a pill for that.
Where do I put it in the mic stand? Anyway,
The hole in the top.
where was I? Okay, we're going to pins and needles, track 10.
6.5.
Cool. This one's a 10.
6.5.
6.66.
All right.
The song is Satan, man.
The song's puns.
Look. We've established my dislike of the Amen break. I did not know I could hate it any worse than I already did until they put soft vocals over top of it. And that was it. I'm done. No. Can't do it.
It's funny. I had no problems with the drums. The vocals are pretty good. The drums are pretty good. This could definitely be used in a soundtrack of something. But if I could give a second thumbs up on this album, it would be this one.
Logan, those vocals, man. They took me out of it the whole time, and I think I finally figured it out. At this track, I figured out what about it I didn't like, and this is my tinfoil hat moment. It sounds like the man is singing in lowercase italics. You know what I mean? All his words are slanted this way, and all of them are lowercase. No capitals, no energy at all. Just like kind of lean. He's doing the lean.
Like Kings of Leon.
Yeah. Like his words are doing the Fent lean. Like how? But I think the drums at the start of this one are really cool. I really like how they're put together. The flute in the background sounds neat. At least I think it's a flute. It sounds kind of like a flute. I just wish his voice wasn't here. I just hate how low energy the vocals are compared to like how quick and like well paced the background is.
Welcome to Dream Theater fans.
Right. This is just another one that's just all right for me.
I know what's funny. I don't think this is anywhere on Big Chungus level or anything near Vince Neil or anybody like that. I don't think his vocals are nearly that annoying. I mean, he could be Eddie Vedder, but
No, his vocals aren't even... I don't even think his vocals are bad. I think the drums and the vocals ain't match. They ain't monster mashing, bro.
What did Big Chungus have to do with this?
I've showed you that video. That's Dream Theater lore that someone played James LeBrie to sing Big Chungus.
Oh, okay.
God, it's in my head.
I was not going to piece that together.
No, that's just his hatred of this band. Just the way that I hate the vocalist of Dream Theater. Get rid of it.
I also hate James LeBrie, so that's fine. James the Cheese can go back to Canada. Yeah, so this is probably my favorite drum part ever written because it's definitely not an amen break, even remotely. I love the way the kick pattern sits exactly in the vocals, and they don't get in each other's way at all. That is incredible.
I think the amen break is just the intro when they kick in. I thought it was reminiscent of it.
It probably is similar. It's got this electronic kind of feel, but
It took me a second to remember which song this was, but yeah, it's not the amen break, but it is used. This one is used at a lot of places.
Okay.
I mean, I hear it because the amen break, the thing you do to find the amen break is you sing the Powerpuff Girls theme. Bum, bum, ba-da-da-da-da, and if it's the... which is not what the drum part was.
I would say it was damn similar.
It was the other
2005 one.
drum. Because I thought I wrote a note about it, and I was waiting for that note to come up, but I think I've pieced together that it's this song, but that I've heard this and liked it in other places too.
I mean, this would have been one of the first times it was played by a real drummer and not a drum machine using it.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been in like hip hop before this, because Darren does admit he has a lot of very kind of everywhere tastes. So I'm sure it was hip hop influenced, but this is an interesting one. He actually gets up off the kit and moves to a secondary, like a cocktail drum set in the middle of the stage, which is that tiny little bass drum, which is why it's such a cool spot in the album for me, because you hear these super dead, super low drums the whole rest of the album, and then he's sitting here playing on this tiny sounding drum set, and it's such a cool spot to do it. And I wish he played it a little more, but I'm not sure it really fits his playing style. But anyway, he's playing with brushes the entire time, and then at certain points Roy is playing on the ride with a brush as well, not specifically a dreadlock, but and then he switches to upright bass later and plays the killer sliding upright bass line, which is the whole the way the kick drum and the bass.
Why are you coming?
The way the kick drum and the bass fit together in
I'm
this
gonna have
song
to
with the
clean
vocals.
this couch.
Dude, I can't even tell you like
There goes the family-friendly tab.
if if anyone could figure out how to put together a composition that lays together like this,
Why are we talking about positions?
it is.
Talking about earlier, I bet she is.
I'm sorry, Carl.
Well, I'm just saying, like the composition is perfect on this, and it is just it's.
I do agree
It's
with
just
you
a
that the
masterpiece.
like. We'll get to this a little bit later on, but I found later on when it's just background stuff, because we do get a song that's no vocalist, I actually end up liking it a lot more.
Yeah, I think you just hate New Orleans.
I think so.
That's not gonna fix any. Never mind, it is. I take it back.
Wait, just enough. All right, so let the hatred continue. Track 11, Spotlight.
No hatred here. 7.
I guess 9.
8.5.
8.
One of my only critiques is we have the iconic 2000s like break at some point. Is this another fast-paced song with low energy, drawn-back lyrics? You bet. You know, it's like that the whole time. I realize that like it's just their style. Like I'm not super into their style, and I can't get attached to it. But the background in this one, I was able to disconnect it completely from the vocals, and it's good. When I just focus on the background tracks, when I focus on all the instrumentation that's going on, all the really cool pieces that like sit behind, I think it can be really cool. All 7 points go to the backtrack, minus the layered vocals in the background. Those actually do sound good. The vocal effects, again, weird. Stop it.
All right. This is a great song to get a speeding ticket to. I love the energy, the vocals, the drums, guitars, and believe it or not, the bass is running the show again. The only issue that I had with this song, so the like crowd incorporated clapping was great. The crowd incorporated chanting was not, though. I didn't think that sounded good at all. Everything else was great.
I think I had the reverse. I don't think I like the clapping, but I like the chanting.
The clapping I thought mixed well, and the vocals sounded like they recorded it in a studio and put it in after, and I didn't. Yeah,
He turns the mic around to the audience.
I figured they didn't actually put them in post, but it sounded kind of like they did.
This is the most in tune audience I think I've heard on a live album in a long time.
That's because you listen to bands that aren't musician bands, and this is a musician band. This is 100% like a musicians appreciate musicians band.
That's true. Yeah, song had a great guitar solo. Bass went hard. Drums are pretty solid. And yeah, energy is the name of the game with this one.
Yeah, there's another killer guitar solo here, which I think is this one. What?
No.
No?
I'm just fucking me.
Oh, okay. Well, this is when we start to see the mayhem that is going to continue growing as time goes on. I don't know. It really does remind me of the State Farm commercial with the guy just being mayhem, because you never know which band member is going to start like messing stuff up. Yeah, the energy's back up. I really liked the buffalo here, which I explained earlier, so now I don't have to explain what a buffalo is. Has a catchy intro. Yeah, that's it. I don't know. The song gets stuck in my head all the time because I'll like walk around and I'll be like da 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 da, like it gets stuck in your head. It's such a catchy little riff. I don't know. I remember parts of this album randomly all the time.
That's fair. Respect.
It's all really catchy. All right, so this is interesting because they actually performed the next two songs as one song. It's only split on the album to make it easier to listen to. Because even at the end of Spotlight, he goes, "Hey, we got one more for you," which is really interesting. Because when he did that, I was like, "Wait, is the last song an encore, or what's going on?" So the next song is Reset.
I give it a 7.5.
I give it a 9.5.
I gave it a 6.5.
I gave it a 5.
I bet I know why.
I hate Tom Morello. If it's a theremin, you're saved and your score is a 6. But if it is a guitar,
No, it's a theremin.
Okay, you get a 6.
It's actually not. It's not a theremin though. It's some sort of thing with a stick. So he has like this thing that just looks like a stick and sounds like a theremin. And when it starts going insane, that's because he just hands it out to the audience.
5.5.
Okay. So in this one, I liked the guitar until it turned into the wub noise. I despised that. I don't like this godforsaken wub. Get it out of here. The groove came back. I really liked that. I just wish they would lay off some of those effects, man. I just wish it was drawn back a little more. I wish they didn't have so much on it. And I really dig the absence of the vocalist. I have a note that says, why is he even here? They sound this good without him. And that sounds really mean.
The delay timing is also really atrociously
It
bad.
is awful. And what's funny is he resets it like 3 times. He keeps trying to fix it and never gets it right because I guess it's an analog delay, so I'm assuming he doesn't have a tap tempo. Or if he has a tap tempo, it is what it is because as we'll find out later, he messes with his delay times all the time. But it's awful too slow, and then it's awful too fast.
Yep.
And then he lets it go for way too long before just cutting it and saying, screw the delay. I don't know. It's like a sign of the chaos to come.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained what that was because I just assumed that one of them was playing it correctly and the other was like, oh, I'm going to figure this out, and like couldn't hear him. I'm glad that I know what it is. It's not getting any points back for it.
Oh, no, that's fine.
It might actually take a point away for it, but I was reading these notes and I feel like my score was a little high for what I said. Mostly that was the big issue. I liked the drums, and this band consistently has all of my favorite keyboard sounds that just in general. But they also got R2-D2 on the track later, and you also explained what that was.
I have no idea what instrument it is. It kind of looks like a spaceship, and it kind of has a fretboard, but not really. And it plays kind of like an automaton, if that makes any sense. It has like an orb that glows in the center that you like touch. I guess this is this way of the theremin, and the other is like the pitch of the theremin. I'm telling you, it makes absolutely no sense. They have found an instrument that I don't know what it is, but it's clearly not important to the song at all because at some point Paul just gives up playing it and hands it out to the audience. And then when the song ends, he literally like rips it out of someone's hand to mute it at the right time. Really weird. I don't know if this is the one that Darren does that too. At some point, Darren hands a ride cymbal out into the audience and just holds the stand and hands somebody a stick and they just start wailing on it. And I don't know if this is this song or not.
I do have one last note. I don't like when the guitar starts to squeal like that. I don't think it sounds good. Or I think it's the guitar squeal. I don't know.
Is it guitar or is it the...
It's the delay pedal.
Is it the fake Rage Against the Machine crap that's going
think
on? Where it's
so.
like, whoa, 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 whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa.
No, that's the theremin.
Yeah,
that's
that
the
thing
theremin.
sounded
It's terrible.
trash, yeah.
Wow, Brian Wilson would be really sad to hear that.
He gave up on it. He gave it to
Yeah,
somebody
he literally gave it to
random.
somebody random.
No, I'm talking about Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Oh,
who
yeah,
died
he just
today.
died. Yeah.
Because there's a theremin in... Good
Wait, hold on.
vibrations.
If a theremin is done well, theremins are cool. But it's got to be done well. You can't just throw it at somebody random in the audience.
Have I brought my theremin over? Have we
Yeah.
played theremin?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I think you missed that day. We just broke in.
So you were
Wait.
here with a theremin and I wasn't?
No, I can bring
Oh,
my
wait,
theremin.
no. I think he's just talked about it in the studio before.
He's
know you-
brought it up a
you-
lot of times.
Oh, you brought it into.
It was probably... Yeah, when we used to work together.
work.
Well, yeah, remind me. I'll bring the theremin and the fushigi, and we'll have some magical times.
Fushigi.
We'll just have to
I'll
write
get
all
that
of those
blender.
things down. The fushigi will not be blended. It's kind of a rare artifact at this point. I feel like
Break the
Indiana
same.
Jones.
What
Break
if we
the
blend
same.
the fushigi and the theremin?
I actually... I wouldn't care that much. I could probably
It's
build
an
my own.
illusion that screams at you.
I bet we'd get some sounds that we don't like.
I bet
Or
putting
that
a-
would be really cool. We don't know.
if you got it right and you put the blender near a theremin, it would pick up the blades moving, and you would probably hear a horrifying sound.
All right, we're doing that.
We
We're doing
need-
that tomorrow.
That's
It might also pick up the interference from the motor, though. So I don't know.
even cooler.
That's okay.
Motor
We'll
hiss.
figure it out.
All right.
We'll play with a theremin
break-
and a
break-
blender.
Break the same. Break the same.
I don't want to go first.
No, go
I'm
first.
saving mine for last.
Well,
It's going to be bad. I want to hear what you guys think about it.
No, you got to go first now.
yeah.
3.
Makes sense. Mine's a 10.
Saw that coming.
Delusional.
I gave it a 7.5.
Give it a 6.
All right,
I
time
know.
to release all the hatred from my soul. Boo! Vocals are back. Hate them. All of it sounds generic again. I think a big part of it is how the vocals and lyrics feel. I really don't think anything else in this band drags it back more than that for me. The effects get really weird here. I don't like how they're used. The guitar is cool. But it's only cool enough for a little bit for the vocals to shut up. And it doesn't sound cool when the vocalist comes back in. It's just way too long. It doesn't hold my attention nearly enough to get me into it. I hate the wub. Dear God, I hate the wub. And my last note here is actually just mean.
Do it.
I'm going to censor a word. I just said, holy hell, I get it. Can you please make that noise stop? I find all of this so unpleasant. This song, to me, is unpleasant. If we had negative rankings, I may have ranked it there. But there's a lot of cool musicianship going on. I can't ignore the, feel that's coming through, because while I don't like a lot of the music that's being played, the feel, the energy of the band coming through, and just how much you can feel kind of how the crowd is involved. And I think being a live song is the only thing that saved it from getting a 0, just a flat 0 from me.
So, interesting fact, I actually thought about giving this a 12 or a 13 earlier, just so I could ever give normal songs a 10
The
again.
second 12 out of 10 this podcast has ever seen.
I actually thought about it. I didn't want to, because I didn't feel like that was fair. And honestly, this isn't my personal favorite song on this album. I just think it's a great display. But you guys go. I'll talk for a while.
I didn't have too much other than this would be like a great encore to the live show. Like exactly what it is, it does it probably perfectly. Drums, bass, great. Ton of cool synth work. I don't think Carson loved the synth work too much, but I thought it was great. And yeah, the energy transition between the last song into this one is great. We should have used that earlier with the one I complained about for a while. I do think this goes on for a little bit too long. Not as the encore to the show, but as a recorded song on an album for us to review and analyze, it goes on for a little too long.
Yes, I very much could see that point if I hadn't seen the video, but I'll explain.
No, I was just saying, I get it. I get why it's there. But for the purposes of what we're doing, it goes on for too long. I got a little sick of hearing it.
I got very sick of hearing it.
But I get what it is. Not to say you don't, but...
I get it. I just don't like it.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I think the only thing that hasn't been touched on is the fact that it turns into like jungle noises. And straight up, there's just like war drums and mosquitoes. And
It's terrible. It's god awful.
I think it's amazing.
It's not.
it was not the move, man.
So it has a perfect transition. It has this huge rock intro. It has this. It's like.
Are you giving it that face about the transition?
Of course,
it's
it's the
the same
perfect transition.
recording.
It was one song.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't
That's
stop.
what I'm saying.
They just cut.
Right. I really like the lyrics of this song. Because I did the studio version as my song of the day a little while ago. It's really cool lyrically because it's like basically you have to remember that everyone breaks the same. Like no matter who we are, we all break the same. So like you have to remember that you can't be too mean to people. Like you have to respect people. You have to treat people right because we all break. We're all fragile.
Ironically, given who you're sitting next to on the couch.
I break people.
Well, I meant in terms of this review and this song
Yeah,
specifically.
No, It's that's the thing that sucks about this sometimes because I probably wouldn't get into this music anyway. I probably would have listened to the first couple of tracks, realized I didn't like it, and then just turned it off. But being at the point where I have to go all the way through and review the whole thing as honestly as I can, even stuff like this, I can appreciate the musicianship going on, even if I don't particularly like the sounds.
That's fair. The end of this, I feel like I had to explain a little bit of what was going on at the end since you guys didn't watch the video. So chaos completely ensues at the end of it. And it starts with... shit, I forgot his name. It starts with Paul literally jumping and like throwing the Rhodes across stage while he's playing chords. So he's literally like running across stage and slamming the Rhodes and slamming into it and gliding across stage and then resetting it and doing it again over and over again. And that starts the chaos. So they never like destroy the Rhodes, but they don't treat it very nicely for what it is. There's a lot of running around on stage, and they're all like running around doing different stuff, and there's just guitar feedback covering them and all sorts of different noise. At one point, Darren gets up and mics up the Rhodes. He starts taking all of the vocal mics on stage and pulling them to the Rhodes and points them directly down on the Rhodes and plays it as drums in the middle of it, which is absolutely wild. And at that point, both Roy and Greg have like sat down on the drum set and are playing drums. So at one point, 3 of them are playing drums. At that point, Darren actually throws one of the bass drums into the audience and surfs on top of it while the other 2 are playing drums. So he's standing on top of a bass drum like surfing during the chaos. And at this point, he's already put the guitar down and he's literally just holding the pedal board, modulating the delay time. So that like mosquito noise you're saying or the screeches, that's a delay pedal in feedback, and he's just adjusting the time on it to change the pitch. He's just holding his pedal board. His guitar is sitting somewhere. He just picked up his pedal board and is starting to adjust it. There's just absolute chaos. And then they figure out how they're going to close it. He jumps back on the drum set. They play these huge ending out, the war drums. And then they just kind of drop all the equipment and run. And it is one of the most high energy things I have ever seen in my entire life. I mean, it's like somewhere between Blue Man Group and like, I don't know, and Led Zeppelin.
So that kind of solidifies in my mind.
What?
that really solidifies in my mind that this album is meant to be a show. Like, you're meant to see these people. You're meant to have this like in front of you. You get to experience the soundscapes fully. Yeah, I feel like listening to it on Apple Music doesn't give it justice. You know.
That's why I wanted to explain earlier why I picked this, and then reiterate that you needed to watch it on video if you could, because it's like Armistice is fine, but if I was going to pick one Mutemath album, I probably would have picked the self-titled, but they haven't fully developed their sound yet. So there's a lot of awesome tracks and a lot of awesome grooves on the self-titled track, but things are more developed and a little further on Armistice. And then I thought about doing Odd Soul, the next album, but Odd Soul is when it gets a little too synthy for my tastes.
I would have hated the Wub Wubs.
And I think
I would have been real excited to do that one.
I would have just been a terrible time
Carl,
over here.
I think you've run into the same problem we had last week, that this is yet again a slow burn album. Because this never once, one, this has a good overall out of me. 2, has not immediately left my Apple Music like most albums on this show.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm going to go back to it.
Well, you could probably just add Mutemath tracks. Like pick the studio cuts you like, or I'd say listen to Mutemath, listen to Armistice, listen to Odd Soul. Sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. I'm trying to hold it.
Bless you.
The album after that, I'm not a big fan of. So the band kind of this is kind of their peak. They start kind of sliding from here, which is kind of sad. But wow, it turned into a cough. I
Came out the wrong hole.
Yeah, I think.
Hate that.
Yeah, I think Greg left right after this, or not too long after this, the guitar player, and then they got another guitar player and did Odd Soul, if I'm remembering correctly. I didn't write all this down, but the sound changes a lot, and I think it kind of loses what it was, and then they keep playing and continue having some but not a lot of success. This is one of those bands that was always like right under the mainstream. And they go all the way until they end up doing that thing with 21 Pilots, which ended up being released 8 years ago, so 2017. And then Darren ends up leaving the band, the drummer, and at that point it's just Paul. So it's kind of interesting. They have this kind of, I don't know, it's like a typical rock story of a band that should have made it that never did. The only thing that really is there with Mutemath throughout the whole time is anytime you see a review of one of their live shows, everyone is like, holy crap, go see this band. And then if you see the reviews of the album, they're like, yeah, album's fine.
Not this guy.
Well, but you also don't tend to like a lot of the stuff that's going on this. This is probably a little...
He's got me there.
Anti-Carson coded.
This is a little antithesis of I.
Let's say it was an experiment, because I knew how Live at the Fillmore went.
That went for different reasons than this went.
For
Yeah,
us.
yeah. I was gonna say for me at least.
A lot of the problems with that were length and the time they spent jamming and all that
Correct.
stuff. And I think that was a lot of the problems with this one. So, I don't know. I was curious to see how it would go when I picked this one, but it was a really funny fight with me because I knew I wanted to do Mutemath because it's a band that not enough people know about. And, say what you want about Paul and whatever he's doing now and all that stuff. Say whatever you want about Christian rock in general. I think this band deserved to be more famous, and that could be fixed. So anytime I can get on a soapbox and talk about them, I want to. So that's why I wanted to do Mutemath. I just ran into a lot of problems figuring out which album I wanted to do.
It's funny. This episode and Will Wood is the perfect back and forth on
the
how their
perfect
couch
flip.
should be, so that it's so weird when they agree on something.
Yeah, it is really strange when we both like something. It's really strange if we both like something for the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's weird.
It's even weirder when both of us don't like it.
It's funny that you mentioned like the dislike of live shows, and I think this one and Fillmore are great examples of just what tips me off to the pissed off region of a live album, which is half of it sounds like the studio, and then the other half is just either nerve mistakes, anxiety, or something. I don't understand what changes the ability to be a metronome for like specific bars and stuff. And I think it's just trying stuff out and jamming, and things like that are going to happen.
It has to do with not being able to hear, mostly.
Yeah.
But honestly, Mutemath isn't that... They're not that rigid in general. I don't know that they recorded to a click track, at least early on. Maybe
That's the thing. I haven't listened to their other stuff. I'm not saying this is like a general... This is just in general complaint
Right.
against live albums. Because like Rush live in Rio, they're kind of all over the place the entire time. And so it pays off. There's an Iron Maiden one where they did Fear of the Dark for a live show. And that's the same way where it's erratic the whole time. And that makes me feel like I'm a part of the show because, there is not a solid, this is 120. It's like, this is everything from 120 to 129 for the next 6 minutes.
this is pretty erratic the whole time. I don't know. I just think... I think normal Mutemath would surprise you exactly how put together it is based on listening to this album. I think that's what it comes down to. I don't know.
It may just have been like the small flub ups that feel like something that like the lead into the chorus being out of time. That's just something that bothers me in any space, recorded like live or not. Like, have someone else sing that part if you are coming in at a specific offbeat that you could only do in the studio. That's, or do tracks. Carl hates tracks, but do tracks.
I don't hate tracks. I hate tracks if you are a band that is not playing the album live. And I hate bands that play the album live. But, no, I mean, seriously, if I go to see a live show, I don't want to hear the album. I think that is something that younger generations are destroying live music with. I think someone wanting to hear the album performed exactly like the album is one of the dumbest things I've ever experienced. But most of that comes from all the bands in the 90s and 2000s being worse live than they were on the album. Because most of the bands I like are from before that time and are considerably better live than on the album. It just comes down to everything's way overproduced and people are making sounds that they can't actually make, and then they have to figure out how to do it live, so they just make it sound like the album. It's just down to different types of musicians, different generations, and
I also think the big swing now is pop music, and what is the variation in pop music?
So, like, I know very little about this genre, but I love watching Jay-Z live because he always hires the best freaking drummers you can imagine and lets them go ham. Dude records to a drum machine most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Records to a track most of the time.
Yeah, there's a reason why Jay-Z has as much money as he does.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of opinions. We know this. I have a lot of opinions on pacing as well. That's where we were.
Oh.
5.
Nice. I'm going to change mine. I'm going to give it a 9.
You know what? I also gave it a 9.
I gave it 2 scores. The score I got out of just my listen was a 6. But I said, if you're a fan of this, it's probably somewhere in the realm of an 8. I just didn't quite. I don't know what's hits, what isn't hits, what's off Armistice. You know, that's just where I'm sitting at.
Where I'm sitting at is I don't really like the songs. So this whole thing dragged on for me. But it's those super long tracks that really kill it. Especially since one of them is the final track. I know if I ever want to run this album again, I'm just going to skip it. I'm not going to listen to it. And even then, I don't think I'd listen to the whole thing again. But again, I just don't really like it. That's it.
You should probably check out some of the studio stuff, to be honest, if you're going to try to like give Mutemath another chance. I don't blame you if you don't. I don't know. It's. I originally gave it a 10 because of how much I love this album, but going back and thinking about it, a lot of the slow stuff that happens in what is that? Burden. A couple of the songs just they feel like they lost the sauce in the middle of the song a little bit, or stuff's just getting like slammed out, which is really interesting because other than the very end, that doesn't happen but a couple spots. And the very end, it's on purpose. They are literally trying to just make the crowd have the craziest show possible and then get out of Dodge, which, as much as I love the ending of this album and I love how it is on the DVD, if I was going to release this album, I would have just put a fade in, which is what most rock people do. I would have just put a fade in at like the 4 or 5 minute mark on Break the Same, and people would have been infinitely happier because nothing happens at the whole rest of the song if you're not watching the video. So that's the 2 spots. It kind of gets back on pacing.
Yeah, for me, I think I had the opposite experience that Carson did. I had a day where I was in the right headspace to listen to this. It only had like 1 or 2 spots where it kind of took me out of it. But on top of that, 1, it's a live album, so it's like halfway cheating in the pacing department because, yeah, it's paced well. They did it. And the other thing is you can hear the crowd throughout this. Their reactions show that it's not paced bad. They're hype every time something happens. So for that alone, it's going to get a higher pacing score. But then also my own experience listening to this as a recording on Apple Music was also much better than Carson's.
To make your point, I will say that there are a lot of live albums that I don't like because they pick the best version of the song off the tour.
Mm-hmm.
That was the way you did it in the 70s and the 80s because the bands were either so drunk or so high or so inconsistent they couldn't play that well all the time, with a few exceptions. But any of your stadium rock bands, any of your live albums are a tour compilation.
Mm-hmm.
They recorded 4 or 5 nights, and so you're getting something that seems to flow, but it doesn't really because you're just getting snapshots of different concerts.
Yeah, and on top of that, in general, I don't really like live albums, so for this to get as high of a scores across the board as it does, except for album art. But that's a whole nother can of worms we're about to get into.
Well, I was going to say, let Logan go. We'll get there.
Yeah, the 6 is just... I don't want to say FOMO is the right word, But it really came down to I needed to want to be at this show, and frankly, I'm not into Mutemath enough to have been at this show. I need to get more into it, I think, and then I'll get it, and the pacing will make sense. And that's where the 8 comes along. That's where I'm like, all right, I think if I was a fan, if I wanted to be there, it's paced pretty well. There's just a lot of spots where it's like, oh, okay, just with the delay and stuff like that.
Yeah, we were talking about it. It's actually pretty wild that this is one take all the way through. That they managed to survive 80 minutes of playing like that. Because at the end of it, they are, especially Darren. I mean, Darren, you just about had to carry him off stage. There's no way that dude could. And I think that's a lot of the reason he ended up leaving the band, was just the energy level of their shows was so high. I mean, he looks like he ran a double marathon at the end of this thing. He's just drenched. So, all right, on to album art.
6.
I love this album art. I give it a 10.
6.
6.5.
You can't get more basic. It's a photo from the show. It's just him. It's just a dude, and it's got some text. And that's it. It's kind of boring, kind of basic. I expect nothing less, nothing more.
I think they did a good job colorizing it so that it fit. Because that's not exactly a photo from the show. You know, the way the lighting is, the way all that stuff was. He posed for that picture somehow with the jump. I don't know how he managed to do it, but that definitely was set up just to do that with the only light on behind him. The way it has this color theme, I really dig. This is my favorite album art of theirs. All their album arts are very busy, so I get not liking that.
Oh wait, hold on. I'm having the colorblind moment again. I'm back here thinking. I'm like, isn't this album art like
Nope.
barely colored at all?
Me and Carson had a whole fight one night when we were doing the thumbnail for this, and he thinks in his head, the entire thing is gray.
Yeah,
It's yellow.
There's
The light
like
is
it
yellow.
looks
Yeah.
really
I mean,
gray to me.
There's hardly any color to it, but it's
But
yellow.
It's the yellow, yeah.
Yeah.
And it matches the... Let me find Armistice instead of Armistice Live.
Like it looks more green than anything to me.
I guess in the same sense that the lemon lime Gatorade, people think that looks yellow.
That is yellow.
No, it's not. That is green.
So the arch is from the Armistice album art. That's why the
There's two sides
arch is
to
there.
that argument. And I
But
understand.
it's the same
I
argument is what I'm
understand
saying.
both. I
it's-
see it's yellow, green.
That's what the studio cut looks like, if you're wondering.
Oh, okay.
It's on purpose.
I mean, it's like the mix of the two, but it is primarily green.
Oh, I think it's primarily yellow, but it is originally green when it came out. So it's still green by that technicality.
I mean,
It shit looks like piss.
All right, my issue with this album art is not specifically an issue with this album art. It is an album art, or it is a problem with most live album arts. I feel like on average, the live album art is either a screenshot from the show with some text, or the coolest thing you've ever seen, and there's very little in between. And this falls definitely on the more boring side of that. It's a live album art. It's exactly what you expect for something like this, except for the last couple minutes of the video. They probably could have done something crazy with this album art.
Yeah, him
But-
surfing on a bass drum.
Yeah, throw something like that in there. If it has to be a screenshot, why did they pick the most boring screenshot from the...
because it's got the arch in the background that makes it match the studio cut.
Man, I'd rather see the chaos from the last 8 minutes.
I get it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just generic to me. It really comes down to most live studio arts are hard to get a good score out of because it's not really you're not trying to capture the artistic side out of it most of the time. Now, when it's like a big concept tour, that's when you'll get that. But this was a cool showing.
There's a couple that they do specific album arts for the live shows, and it's this hyper artistic take on the original album art, and that's always sick. But that's like 1 out of every 10 do that, and the other 9 take a picture or a screenshot from the video.
Nice. All right. Well, we should probably get into overall. We're almost an hour 45 here.
All right. 6. This thing ain't for me. There's some really cool stuff in here. I think the musicianship is really sick. That's why I couldn't rate it anything lower than a 6. Like, the amount of cool stuff going on in the background, the amount of just impressive technicality going on in the background. It's an insane performance. The energy is absolutely through the roof. And again, I think the main things for me, I don't like the vocal performance. I think it really drags it down. I don't like how all of the effects are going on all at one time. And like, I think at a point the effects got so dense that everything was just gibberish. And I just didn't really like that. Overall, I think it's just majorly not for me. There's, really impressive stuff, but there's just too much that gets in the way of my ears.
I'm going to go last if that's okay.
That's fair. I had a good time with this album. I was going to give it an 8, and then I saw my scores and thought that would be kind of out of place. So it did get a 7.5, but it was a great listen for me. I don't typically like live albums, but this one was good.
Yeah, I gave it a 7.5. I know, wild. I was pretty mean in some places. But I tend to lean towards just the negative notes because you guys hit all the positive notes.
Not tonight for me.
It wasn't a bad album. And yeah, I'm going to go back. This is like a 7.5 where I'm like, it's going to go up, I'm pretty sure, unless I really just figure out I don't like it. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think you know what my answer is. I gave this album a 10 because this came out at the right time for me. I followed this band from... They might have had an album out when I started listening to them. I think I downloaded the Reset EP when it came out, which would have been 04. So I'm pretty sure I was a pretty early boots on the ground fan for Mutemath. I'm still bummed that I never got to see them live at this point in their career. I don't know. There's a lot of nostalgia and there's a lot of memories to this album in particular. This was something that I listened to my first freshman year of college is when this would have come out instead of the second or third one. But it's just got so many things, and a lot of what they do and a lot of the way they are, and specifically Darren. I talked about this earlier. He's one of my biggest influences as drummers, and the way he orchestrates stuff and what he does with what's in front of him and what they all do with what they have. Short of the pedal boards and synths being a little out there and the weird theremin, none of them are really playing just absurdly exotic instruments. Most of them are playing pretty normal stuff, and they're getting all of these fairly new at the time sounds out of them. And I don't know, the musicianship and all that, and the fact that somehow they do the crazy stuff and yet the songs around them manage to stay fairly catchy. It's a big tribute to what they do. As far as live shows go, this is up there for me as like my favorite live show. I don't know, probably Radiohead in the Basements up there. The one of In Rainbows. Trying to think, there's probably some others. There's a lot of classic rock stuff that. This Foo Fighters at Wembley is another killer show. The energy levels are that high at this show, which is cool. The other thing I did that none of you did was watch the videos. And even if I had even if I had just listened to the album, I would have known what the videos were like, so it wouldn't have changed it. So I watched it the way I wanted to, and did that today, and really just enjoyed going back and seeing something that I remembered loving and actually realizing that I still loved it. That's one of those kind of reassuring things, because all of us kind of look back on our tastes or different times and say, man, that really was something, wasn't it? I can't believe I was into that, or I can't believe this, or I can't believe that. And I expected to find more negativities. And really what I found was I actually appreciate a lot more of the parts of this album that I didn't care for before. Before this re-listen today, I'd say this probably would have got an 8.5, maybe a 9. This is one of my favorite things to put on and leave on, because I actually like the whole album because of how they paced it and how the tracks from different albums work together. But this was never something that I thought would have been a 10 for me before today. And I sat down and realized how much I actually enjoyed the majority of this, and it was just interesting that I actually came out liking it more than I did when I went in. So that's how I ended up with a 10. Cool. Anybody got any closing notes?
Well, we got next week's album, Logan.
Yep. Next week we are listening to The Great Deceiver by Mortis. Came out in 2016. It's labeled as industrial metal. It's pretty. It's there somewhere in that range.
Some boy Carson's gonna quit.
No, this is Carson will like this. This is ex black metal bass player.
Ooh.
His project that he's
This is the
been
one where
doing
I
for
quit.
a while.
I
I think this is enough in everyone's realm
That's fair.
for everyone to be either really okay with it. Carl, this is just to see if you can tolerate black metal mixing.
I can't, but
Oh,
I
it's
know what
fully
it is.
mixed black metal?
It's mixed black metal style.
Ooh.
No, but I know what it sounds like. You just put a tube screamer on the master.
Scoop the mid, yeah.
Well, you push the upper mids and take all the lows out. It's really interesting, but I know what it is, so I can accept it. You know, I can.
This one goes hard.
Cool. I'm excited. I don't know, man. I had this weird thing today. Is like, man, if I liked this more than I remembered, what else am I gonna like? So I'm gonna go back and re-listen to some stuff. We'll see. Maybe I'm just getting soft.
Oh yeah, almost forgot. That will be the last episode of season 4. We'll be coming back. We'll be having a week break after that, and then coming back with season 5 after that.
Yep.
Well, guys, don't forget to do all the stuff. Like, subscribe, leave comments. Go listen to all the Mutemath you can. I'm going to give you that one on this one because I don't even know who's making money on it at this point since the band isn't there. I'm guessing Paul is, but
Is that the vocalist?
yeah. Yeah, I get it.
I'm joking, Carl.
No, I do. Dude, I'm telling you, and it's so funny because Darren is like the opposite of anything I would ever like in a drummer, but my fondness for the way he plays the drums could override almost anything. Even though I watched him today and I was like, ooh, a couple times he was playing, I was like, man, that's a little. All right. Yeah, like, subscribe, comment.
One more thing.
Oh, yeah, Logan's got something.
You want to see us review your songs? Drop a comment with that song, and we will check it out. Bye.